Even after over a decade working in finance, I still get the urge to buy stuff I know I don't need. And for years, that's where all my money went, wasted on things I thought would make me happy, but ultimately didn't. So I started doing things differently. So today, I'm sharing the 10 best things that help me stop wasting money. In fact, by applying some of the things in this video, I managed to save £12,000 in just 30 days without feeling like I was missing out. First is spend more money. Now, I know what you're thinking. I thought the idea of this video was to spend less. But you can invest in things that will save you money and time. Here's an example. My commute to London is about £42 a day. Trains are just crazy expensive. So I decided to buy a car, and whilst this has costs of its own, I can drive to a station closer to work and cut that travel cost down to £14 a day, which, if I get into the office 3 times a week, will save me about £325 a month. Now, clearly out of that, I need to deduct the costs to actually run the car, but invariably it still pays for itself and leaves me better off per month. And now we're a 2-car household, so it has other spillover benefits besides just getting me to and from the station, especially with 2 small kids to cart around. So this one purchase will save me about £3,900 a year. But make sure you run the numbers. Will this initial expense pay for itself, and will it reduce your outgoings from one month to the next? Which leads me nicely onto my next point, the price-value gap. There is this quote which I often think of from Warren Buffett when it comes to thinking about how you want to spend your money. Price is what you pay, value is what you get. And you very quickly get to this distinction between people who are cheap and people who are frugal, which I think really gets to the core of this whole discussion. A cheap person will focus on cost and only cost. That is the beginning, middle, and end of the conversation for them, even at the expense of everything else. Value, quality, reusability, reliability, comfort, all comes stone dead last to price. And then you have a conscious spender, someone who's a bit more frugal, someone who maybe cares about value and is willing to spend a little more if they get a little more. And they're certainly willing to spend a little more if they can get a lot more. Personally, I think there's a third way. I like to think of myself as a conscious value spender. I make room in my budget for the things that are important to me, but I cut costs pretty aggressively everywhere else. We eat out pretty regularly as a family, but you'll never catch me spending £100 on a bottle of wine. But we should also point out that people will get value from different things. If I were a fitness fanatic, then a £50 a gym month membership might be great value. So how you determine value is really up to you and is very subjective. It's all about what your priorities are. Think about opportunity cost. This is a term from the world of economics. Opportunity cost is basically what you give up when you choose one option over another. It's not just the price you pay, it's the benefit you miss out from not doing something else with that money. So if you decide to waste £100 on whatever you might decide to waste £100 on, then there are other things that money could go towards. You could put it into a junior ISA for your kids, and that could be £58,000 by the time they turn 18. Maybe that could go towards reducing your credit card bill. Maybe that could be a regular overpayment on your mortgage. It's all the other things you could spend that money on. Now, I should also point out, you can drive yourself absolutely mad with this one. Well, if I picked up that penny off the floor and put it into a low-cost index fund, then in 2 millennia I could buy a Kit Kat with it. So as with all of these rules, common sense should prevail. I personally think this saves me about £200 a month, which is about £2,400 over the year. Unlike opportunity cost, the price-value gap is different for different people. If you have 2 people who want to lease a brand new car that's £500 a month, but one of them has no credit card debt, a fully funded emergency fund, invests regularly, is maximising their pension contributions and has not a penny of debt, and someone who has none of those things, then the opportunity cost to each of them is different. The opportunity cost to person A is much lower than it might be to person B because they're on a much firmer financial footing, despite the cost still being £500 for both of them. And make sure you stay to the end because I'm going to be going through a 6-step process to help control your spending. Next up, negotiating your costs. We've all been there. You get an email for your car insurance, your home insurance, your internet provider, whatever, to say your contract is coming to an end and it's going to auto-renew. And invariably, it's going to be on a much higher rate than you were before. So I have calendar reminders every year to check in on all the major outgoings like energy, car insurance, home insurance, phone bills, Wi-Fi, the whole works, to remind me to get in touch with those service providers to renegotiate the rates. Now, as luck would have it, I got this email reminder for my car insurance, which was going to go up by £200 per year for some inexplicable reason. So I went on to compare the market, not sponsored, got a bunch of quotes that were less than the premium I paid last year, rang up my provider and just told them. Didn't have to scream, didn't have to shout, didn't have to let it all out, didn't have to go full Tom Cruise and Jerry Maguire on them. Just said, this is the best price I got, and they matched. So about half an hour of research and waiting on hold saved me about £300, and I managed to get my car premiums less than last year. I've done the same, and just by coincidence, these all seem to just about line up every year for me. And I managed to save about £600 this month by switching providers. Maximise your work perks. In the modern age of Google offices that have slides, free canteens, laundry, and every conceivable amenity you wouldn't have dared dream of in an office 10 years ago, these can be gimmicks, but I bet most people watching might be offered a work perk that they don't take full advantage of. The most obvious one is employer matching on your pension. This can be one of the critical ways to help save for your retirement. It's matched by your employer. Less than half of people in the UK currently do it, and it's tax-free. But when it comes to work perks, I get that it can be very laborious to navigate, so make sure you speak to your HR team or maybe your boss to find out what those perks are. Now, regular viewers of the channel will know that life insurance is a big one that I'm discussing at the moment. I think it's something like 13% of people in the UK have income protection. We always say on this channel that insurance can be your last line of financial defence, and yet it rarely gets the credit that, frankly, it really should do. So by going through all my perks at work, I was able to save about £600 a year. Next up, we have the 24-hour rule. So as I've mentioned, we've just moved house, and the temptation to go out and spend all the cash on shiny new things for the shiny new house can be absolutely overwhelming. And frankly, the Amazon targeted ads can read me like a book, but more on that a bit later. New TVs, new furniture, new coffee machines. Imagine it, and they will have targeted an ad for me with it. So how can you overcome this? Well, you can impose a cooling off period. Here's how it works. If you want to buy something that's less than £100, then leave it 24 hours. If it's over £100, then leave it for a week. And if it's over £250, then leave it for 30 days. Now, clearly you can adjust these for your own personal circumstances, but I think these are reasonably good benchmarks. This has saved me about £2,000 in the last 30 days, easily, which is kind of depressing to say. And what I would generally say is that 80% of the time, I just didn't need it. I could definitely go without it, and it's just going to be another impulse purchase. But that 20% of the time where you do actually wait really makes you appreciate that you did wait for it. Recognize the signs. Now, in my view, knowing your enemy is key goods here. There are literally billions and billions of pounds spent every year trying to separate you from your hard-earned money. Marketing, adverts, market research, product placements, the whole 9 yards. But my view has always been, if you know when and how to look out for some of these really sly tactics that retailers have developed, then it can help you to recognize them and not necessarily fall for them. So here are some of the top ones that you should really look out for. The first one is called the decoy effect. So you'll be presented with a third worse option to make the more expensive option look like better value. So a classic example is a small coffee might be £2, a medium coffee might be £3.80, and a large might be £4. Most people might pick the medium, but then you add in a decoy. You make the medium £3.90 and a large £4. Now people shift to the large because they think they're getting a better deal. The next one to look out for is anchoring, and your brain will lock on to the first number that it sees. And we've all seen these ads. Was £249, now £129. Your brain is anchoring to the original price. Even if £129 isn't objectively a good deal, the £249 was just an even worse deal. There's the classic scarcity and urgency. Only 3 left in stock, sale ends in 2 hours. Scarcity triggers loss aversion in your brain, and the urgency really helps to shut down rational decision making. And then maybe the most common one, free shipping thresholds. Spend £50, get free delivery. You end up adding things you don't need just to save £4 in delivery. So here's the thing, knowing about some of these sales tactics gives you this psychological armor. The moment you recognize these sales tactics, whether it's a countdown timer, decoy pricing, fake urgency banner, the emotional spell is just broken. Instead of thinking, I need to buy this before it runs out, you think, classic scarcity play. Nice try, but not today. And this is really backed by science. Studies have shown that consumer education helps to reduce spending. A 2018 study in the Journal of Consumer Research found that simply alerting people to marketing tactics reduced their willingness to pay by up to 28%. Next up, we have don't just think about the money. Here's what I mean by that. Go back to your last payslip, find your take-home pay, what actually hit your bank account on payday, and divide it by the number of hours you worked. What that tells you is how much money will hit your account every time you go out and work for an hour. Now, I appreciate for people who are self-employed, this might be a bit more tricky, but just an indicative number I think is perfectly fine. And here's what you do. Every time you're going to make a purchase over a certain threshold of, say, £100, you say to yourself, how many hours would I have to work in order to earn this money? And just thinking about the time that you might spend at a job you hate or commuting into the office or whatever can really help just reframe your thinking about what you actually want to dedicate your time and your money and your resources towards. Next up, we have focus on marginal cost. So marginal cost is kind of a simple concept. It's the difference between two purchasing options. So a friend of mine recently became self-employed, had the option of two different accountants, a very, very cheap accountant and another accountant who understood their industry but was slightly more expensive. Now, invariably, he went with the cheaper accountant who didn't really understand the industry and literally just filed returns on his behalf. And then, sure enough, a few months later, he gets kind of a big tax bill. And because the cheaper accountant didn't actually offer kind of tax advice, he ended up getting a bigger bill and incurring costs which he wouldn't have otherwise had to incur. Now, the question then becomes, had he gone with a slightly more expensive accountant who really understood the industry and understood the accounting behind it and how the tax system works with that industry, he would have definitely been able to save himself this money. So there is potential benefit in spending a bit more money if you can get a lot more value. And I think in this case, the answer is pretty clear. For a marginal increase in cost every month to his accountant, he would have potentially saved thousands of pounds. And last up, we have, can you spend less to get the same thing? So here's a story. We had a bloke come round and quote up for some fitted wardrobes, £10,000 for fitted wardrobes. Immediately, I was just like, not paying that kind of money. So after doing a bit of research, I came across IKEA hacks. I won't bore you with the details, but basically you buy standard IKEA wardrobes and you frame them into the wall so that they look built in and custom made. So I went down this option, ordered everything from IKEA, cost me about £1,000 in wardrobes, which for IKEA seems like a lot now I think about it, but no matter. And then I got in touch with a local handyman and I explained what I was doing. For an extra £500, he could make it look as though it was built in, look as though they were fitted wardrobes. And this gives me basically three possible options. I have the first option of just spending £10,000 straight up. It doesn't cost me anything in time, but there's a big financial cost attached to it. And then we have the other end of the scale. I can just go to IKEA, buy the wardrobes, spend a day putting them together myself, and it costs me about £1,000. So this has a lower cost in pounds, shillings and pence, but does also involve me spending an entire day of my weekend putting it all together. And then we have this option kind of in the middle. For this extra £500, I can get something which I would say looks 80% as good as the proper built-in fitted wardrobes, but for 15% of the cost. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. I researched a cheaper alternative, and for a bit of extra money for an increased marginal cost, I got something which I think is pretty much spot on. And in terms of value for money, I couldn't be more pleased with it. And in this story, this is really where it all came together for me. I thought about my time. How much of my time was I going to have to commit to this? I thought about the opportunity cost of that money. £10,000 is a lot of money, and the list of things I would rather do with £10,000 than spend it on very, very, very expensive fitted wardrobes, which I'm sure would have looked absolutely brilliant. I then considered the marginal cost. The marginal cost from the £1,000 option to the £1,500 option is still a 50% increase, but when compared to the £10,000 option, seems like a better deal. So going through this process saved me over £8,000. Now, earlier on in the video, I'd mentioned that we were going to go through a 6-step process for how you should spend your money. So let's just very quickly go through it. And this is something you can apply as little or as often as you like. Take a look. So the first thing you need to ask yourself is, do you really need it? Do you really need it? Then the next one is, did you need it yesterday? This helps to potentially add a time frame attached to it, or when you may next need it. Can you rent it or borrow it? Can be another option, which is very often overlooked. All of this, all these tips and tricks, all these habits that I've been researching have saved me over £12,000 in less than 30 days. And I think the great thing is, it's not just something I've done for the last 30 days. It's something that I can continue to do in future to help me save money. So whilst it might be £12,000 in 30 days, it could be tens of thousands of pounds over years to come. But we should also point out that this stuff isn't going to make you rich, but it will certainly help. If you really want to be rich, then feel free to watch this video on ISA millionaires. And we have this video, which I would also really recommend you watch. Thanks very much for watching. If you've liked this video, please like and subscribe. You've been watching Modern Money Talk.